What is the total dollar value of insurance in force at the CMHC? Just the number, please.
So currently, our insurance in force is, let me just get that. It's $404 billion.
And then what is the total value of guarantees under the National Housing Act, mortgage-backed securities, and Canada mortgage bonds? The total, please, the number.
The total is 460.
So if you add those two numbers up, 404 plus $460 billion, I get $864 billion. Is that the total value of the amount of money the government is on the hook for when it comes to backing up mortgages?
So thank you, Chair. And just in response to Mr. Poilievre's question, the reason I hesitated when he first asked the question is
right. We don't have a lot of time.
I know those two numbers, but there's duplication because some of the mortgages are in the securitization number.
I know that, Ms. Powers, but what I'm asking for, what is the total number? And what I did ask you for the first time is, what is the total number when you remove the duplication?
So I don't have that number on hand, but we can certainly get that.
That is very disappointing because we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of contingent liability.
Point of order.
Yes. Point of order. This way of questioning, to me, make me uncomfortable in front of our witness. I'd like Mr. Poilievre to be a tiny bit more respectful towards our witness, please.
We have talked about respect and decorum, Mr. Poilievre, but and just crosstalk. So for the interpreter's sake, so let's try to just stop that. That'd be great. Thank you.
Well, it makes me uncomfortable that we have hundreds of billions of dollars of unknown contingent liabilities. Ms. Romy, if people do default on their mortgages, your corporation then pays the default loss to the bank, and taxpayers could be on the hook for that money. And the fact that you don't know the total amount of guarantees that your government, that your organization is offering on behalf of taxpayers to our banks is problematic. I'll explain why. If our housing prices simply went back to the level they were at in 2020, that would be nearly a 25% reduction in house prices. And if people went defaulted on those houses, many would be underwater. So taxpayers would then have to pay for the default loss. And I would expect that the head of the corporation that is managing these liabilities and this risk for taxpayers would know the number and have them at fingertip. And I want to go to Mr. Rutledge now to further talk about the risk. What percentage of new mortgages in last year were variable rate?
Roughly 51 or 52%.
That's an unusually high share, isn't it?
It is unusually high,
so when rates rise, those people are immediately going to have higher payments, aren't they?
Mr. Chair, you're right. That is a correct statement.
And what percentage of households who've got mortgages in the last year have 5% down?
What percent of mortgages, Mr. Chair, have 5% down?
Yeah, a down payment of 5%.
I would have to look into that and come back to the committee, and I will do so.
And when you do make a 5% down payment, you have to pay mortgage insurance to CMHC or the other providers, and that is tacked onto the value of the mortgage, isn't it?
Typically, yes.
Yes, so that 5%, for a 5% down, you have to pay 4% in mortgage insurance fees, which means that you only, once you subtract the mortgage insurance from your down payment, you actually only have 1% net equity in your house then, don't you?
All else equal, everyone's different, and I wouldn't make a broad
So if someone's got
point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order.
Why the Liberals don't want these questions asked.
Point of order.
Not at all.
Point of order, Ms. Zarowicz.
I can understand why these Liberals don't want these questions asked.
There's a point of order, Ms. Poilievre. Yeah, Ms. Zarowicz.
I actually think these questions are very important, but I also think the answers are very important, and I feel like Mr. Rutledge isn't allowed to actually fully answer the question. So I would ask that he be allowed to do so.
No,
I have been taking timings here, and Mr. Poilievre had 14 seconds, and the last one 7 seconds, and he cut into Mr. Rutledge, who had 1 second and 0.41 to answer. So, Mr. Poilievre, equal time, please, for the witnesses to answer those questions.
Fair point. I do want to thank Mr. Rutledge because he has actually been offering direct answers to the questions. And so if you've ultimately got 1% net equity in your house, and house prices go back just to 2020 levels. So we're just talking going back to where they were a couple of years ago. And they've dropped by 25% then. You're 24 percentage points underwater in your mortgage. Now, if you can't make your mortgage payments because you're on a variable rate, you've just acknowledged that half of new mortgages are variable, and you default, then you hand your house over to the bank in a 24% loss position. And the bank hands the bill over to Ms. Bowers over at CMHC, who then passes it on to taxpayers in the form of mortgage insurance payment. That is the risk that we're facing now. I want to know what immediate action, Mr. Rutledge, you're taking
Mr.
to address the high level of variable rate mortgages.
We have gone well over your time, Mr. Poilievre.